Are you planning an unforgettable New Zealand South Island itinerary for your family vacation? In this video, we'll talk about the best locations, kids-friendly activities, reliable transport and accommodation options. To kickstart your planning process, we also have a sample 12-day South Island itinerary available for you. My name is Michael. Let's get started. In my job as a travel designer, I have found that the key challenge for many family travelers is to achieve the perfect travel balance. New Zealand is a beautiful country and there's lots to see and do, but how do you cater for different ages and interests? How do you have a relaxing but also exciting holiday experience with lots of memorable highlights? Let's go step by step through the key and most important planning steps. Those are timing, locations, interests, transportation, accommodation, and tours and activities. Timing. Most travelers will travel to New Zealand during the peak summer season. This typically runs between November and March. The busiest time of the year is the Christmas and New Year's period, so between the 20th of December and 10th of January. Due to the school holiday season, Christmas and New Year is the most popular time for family travelers as well. But New Zealand has only a certain amount of options for accommodations, tours and transportation. So it's busy and therefore important that you plan at least 9 to 10 months ahead for your holiday during the New Zealand Christmas and New Year's period. Also, bring as much time as you can. Even if you have 1 or 2 extra days, those will make a difference on how your itinerary flows and what kind of balance you get. There's so much to see and do, but you probably also want a bit of time to unwind. In respect of temperatures and weather conditions, I have made another video. Check this out in the description box below. There's also a free New Zealand planning sheet for you to download. If this video is helpful, please hit the subscribe button below too. Locations and interests. For the first time travelers to New Zealand, the sheer amount of locations and activities options can be overwhelming. My advice is to go less is more. If you only have 10 to 14 days for your itinerary, you will not be able to see everything in the South Island. So plan on staying long at each location as much as possible and use it as a base to explore. I call this the slow travel approach. For family travelers, spending 2 or 3 nights at one location is such a good strategy. After all, you don't want to pack and unpack every day. Okay, let's say your interests are the great outdoors. You're looking for nature, for wildlife and other exciting tours like jet boating, a helicopter ride, a boat ride in the fjords, and maybe even whitewater rafting. So that being the case, you may want to select Queenstown as a hub. That way you will be able to include the West Coast beaches and glaciers, the Fiordland National Park, and the penguins and albatross colonies near Dunedin. Plus, maybe a train journey in between. Again, I have made a number of videos explaining those regions in more detail, so check out in the description box below. So let's talk about a sample 12-day South Island family itinerary in this Google map. As you can see, there is plenty of distance to cover when traveling those 4 key locations, like you start in Christchurch, at the west coast of the South Island, you're going down to Queenstown, you hitting Fiordland National Park and go over to Dunedin on the eastern side of the South Island. Transportation. So let's say you start your South Island itinerary in Christchurch and finish up there as well. So you have a number of options to get around. First, you can do a self-drive. This means either hiring a rental car or motorhome. Note, I have made another video on the pros and cons between the motorhome and the rental car. Costs, style of traveling, etc. So check out in the description box below. If you are not keen on the self-drive options, but you still want to have the flexibility to have your own transport, you can also hire a private driver. You won't need to drive every day, just enough to cover the main parts between those key locations you selected previously. So once you arrive at a location, let's say in Queenstown, you can either use local transport or the tour operators will pick you up from your accommodation. With this sample South Island itinerary, you can also begin your journey with a Transalpine train trip between Christchurch and Greymouth. This is enjoyable for children and parents alike. The good thing about it is you will connect the east coast with the west coast of the South Island. If you still prefer to travel less on the roads, then taking a domestic flight is a great option. You'll be able to cover larger distances at far less time. You might be able to connect with your international flight and avoid another one-night stay. Please note, the larger rental cars and motorhomes and domestic flights need to be booked earlier. If you do that, you get the best options and the best prices. Accommodation. Now that you have timing, locations and interests sorted, let's have a good look at accommodation options. I've done another video going into details about great accommodation options throughout New Zealand. Check in the description box below. If you're traveling as a family, it's usually best if you choose an apartment or cottage style accommodation. Of course, your budget will play a key role if you select an Airbnb cottage, a motel, a resort style, or a hotel. Resorts have the advantage, as well as hotels, that they have often in-house restaurants and other facilities such as kids' playground, health and spa, and even a golf course. In this video, I won't go into the cost details because this will vary very much depending on your location, on the time of the year you're traveling, and the level of comfort you require, plus the inclusions. There are many websites and booking options you can check out online. Overall, my recommendation is to go for a mix of accommodation options. Many of my guests are seeking local experiences. Sometimes even the classic farm stay place is a wonderful treat for the kids. Note, those authentic farm stay places are not located everywhere. They need to be planned early on in the second planning step with locations and interests. So for example, if you wish to have a farm stay included for your children, you want to do the research on the best options on classic farming regions such as the Canterbury and the Southland region. One thing is sure, you need to secure those key accommodations early, but after you have set times and locations. Don't start with booking accommodation before that. This strategy especially applies for Christmas and New Year travel dates. You want to be early and you plan and secure them early. Tours and activities. Even if you early focus on your travel interests, nature, outdoors, exciting tours, you want to plan and book those tours last. You want to create a nice balance between action and relaxation for your overall holiday experience. Plus, you want to leave some flexibility for something else you want to do along the way, like visiting a kiwi birdhouse. I'll go through a sample itinerary in a minute to make this much clearer. There are many things you don't need to pre-book, such as walks or local attractions like a gondola ride. But anything with nature included, such as a penguin tour, you really need to plan those and set into your set itinerary schedule. So let's go through this sample itinerary for 12 days South Island. Please note, I will put the Google Map link in the description box below so you can follow that later on. So when starting in Christchurch, there's an international airport, so most people will fly in there. Have a night or two, which means if you have a second night, you can actually do a day trip here out into the Banks Peninsula, Akaroa. There's swim with the dolphins, there's beautiful landscape. It's a really nice start. As discussed before, you can either travel with a rental car or with a driver. In any case, you would actually head towards the Southern Alps, which run throughout the South Island, and you go over Arthur's Pass. There's a couple of really neat places to stop, like Lake Pearson, there is Castle Hill Rocks, there's a walk. So there's lots to discover even when you're traveling in between locations. The drive between Christchurch and Greymouth is around about 4 hours, but you can also use the Transalpine train experience, which goes once a day between those locations. So it's usually 8:15 in the morning, starting Christchurch, and you would arrive around about 1:30 in the afternoon in Greymouth. In Greymouth, you can pick up a rental car right at the train station, or you meet your driver, which would be able to transfer you to your next accommodation, which would be in Hokitika. Along that route, there are many sights to see and highlights. So I've made actually a whole range of road trip videos, which I will put into the description box below. It would take simply too much time to go all through those. So then you're traveling the next day further south, going to Franz Joseph Village, which is located here. It's only about 3 hours drive or so. So you actually have time to explore the Franz Josef area in the afternoon. If you have a little bit more time, have 2 nights there, but it all depends really on how much time you have available. Then this is probably SH6, State Highway 6, one of the most scenic roads in New Zealand. Lots of rainforest, you're passing beaches here along Bruce Bay, and it's really totally underpopulated, so there's not a lot of people living here, so you need to be a little bit prepared, especially self-drive. Then heading over the Haast Pass here, it's one of the alpine passes you're crossing from the west coast to the Otago region. Again, I've done a number of videos on that, and you will arrive into the Otago region, which has a totally different scenery than the west coast of the South Island. You may either stay here in Queenstown or in Wanaka and use those as your base to explore. There's lots to do. Again, I got some video links about options on things to do in those 2 regions. The Fiordland National Park here on the west coast of the South Island is the largest national park in New Zealand, 1.3 million hectares. So there's lots to see, lots to do, but most people would go to Milford Sound here. It's the only road access. I highly recommend to have 2 nights in Te Anau because you actually need that full day to go into Milford. If you would want to do it from Queenstown, it's a very long drive, 5 hours one way. So yeah, really I recommend you staying in Te Anau. Then you would cross over to the eastern side of the South Island, to Dunedin. It's famous not only for its Scottish heritage, but also for the Otago Peninsula, which is this part here, which has the penguin colony and the albatross colonies. Now, you can then head back to Christchurch here on the main road, SH1, but I've done another video here on Meraki Boulders. That's a cool stop to do. Oamaru is another really cool place to stop. But you can also decide, depending on your time available, you can also decide to maybe go inland again. So here is the Mount Cook National Park area. So instead of actually going up north to Christchurch, you might actually want to turn in here and to following that route SH8, passing Lake Pukaki, Lake Tekapo, and then really heading back towards Christchurch. If you time it well, you either need to stay another night in Christchurch, or you could actually connect with your international flight straight out there. So this is, in a very brief nutshell, a 12-day sample itinerary for the South Island. I will put those links for specific road trips in the description box. They are really important and very valuable, I believe, for you. So check them out, and also the link for this map will be in the description box below. So as a summary of a South Island family itinerary, as you see, if you use this planning system for your family holiday plan in the South Island of New Zealand, it can be fun and easy to do. Check out my general planning video for the North and South Island in this video up here. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below. Thumbs up to stay connected for more helpful New Zealand travel tips. See you in the next video.